My name is Dave Morgan, and I'm going to be going through stage 2 of the Understanding by Design, or the UbD process, which is determining an acceptable evidence. We'll begin with examining performance tasks. These performance tasks are those that are associated with deeper understanding, where the goals are related to transfer goals and meaning goals. So note that there's a column for desired results code. These are the codes you may remember from stage 1, and we'll go back and take a look at those for reference. And then there's a column for the performance tasks, which is the way in which students or participants would demonstrate their understanding. And then the evaluative criteria, which are the criteria being used to determine the success of the performance tasks. So going back to the desired results code, these are the transfer goals and meaning goals from stage 1. So as we go back and look at stage 1, here are the transfer goals. Note again T1, 2, 3, and 4. And here were the goals that we had established to be able to develop an estimate of time required to deliver a project, as well as these three others. Bearing in mind that these all, again, mapped back to specific competencies that we were trying to achieve. The key to all of this process is alignment between all of these different stages to ensure that we are, in fact, teaching to the objectives and the learning objectives that we're trying to achieve. So there again, we have the transfer objectives, and now associated with those transfer objectives, here were the different performance tasks for each of these transfer objectives, and then the associated evaluative criteria, the way in which we'll determine whether the desired results were achieved. Moving down the list, again, we have the essential questions and the understandings, which made up the meanings portion of stage 1. So just for a refresher, we'll go back and look at stage 1, and the meaning section included these essential questions and understandings, all of which mapped back to specific competencies that we established very early on, and all are captured Q1 through 4 and U1 through 3 under these performance tasks. These are distinguishable from other kinds of evidence because these are ways that we ensure the kind of deep understanding that we expect students will be able to walk away with at the end of the unit. Okay, having reviewed these, we now go to other evidence. And here, similarly, we have 3 columns, only in this case, we're actually going back and describing all the meaning goals and skill goals and transfer goals and knowledge goals. So really, all the goals that we established in stage 1 are going to be included here. But what we're focusing on in this area is other evidence. Other evidence includes things like quizzes, tests, homework, and other activities where we're either looking for some degree of understanding of just the fundamental principles, or even just knowledge of terminology and kind of surface level things. Because these are things that can be much more simply assessed through tests and quizzes and graded assignments, we put these under other evidence. So they have um, much more specific evaluative criteria. For instance, for transfer goal number 1, we might establish homework assignments or have quizzes. And really, the best way to evaluate those is the number correct, the percentage correct. So it should be pretty easy to gauge how well we're meeting the objectives by the responses. So again, we have transfer, we have essential questions, we have understandings. Only on this list, like we did not have on the list prior, we also have knowledge and skills. So knowledge and skills, again, can be evaluated through tests and quizzes. as well as in-class laboratory simulations and other class participation kinds of things. Again, for refresher, we go back up to stage one. Here are those knowledge and skills, and notice that these map directly to these here in stage two. The last section of stage two is to complete one grading rubric. So of any of the critical assessments in that first section of stage two, I selected transfer objective number 4, which is reflecting on why there may be differences in perspective leading to optimistic or pessimistic schedule estimates. So having selected that, we established a rubric, which there's a variety of reasons why we should use rubrics, and specifically for the tests of knowledge that we want to have more depth of understanding, as opposed to just tests and quizzes. Anytime that we're asking students to reflect or to create or to do any kind of rich analysis of, we need a rubric like this. It helps to level set expectations for the students. It helps to ensure that we as educators and instructors are aligned with learning objectives and a variety of other benefits. So in this case, I simply took the criteria here. Notice that there's 5, and if we go up to transfer assessment number 4, notice those are the same 5 criteria that I plan to use to evaluate this particular performance task, which is reflecting on why there may be differences in perspective. Okay, so notice that down here in the criteria, for example, the first criterion, there's no evidence, which means that the student displayed no evidence whatsoever of any kind of understanding of the perspective of a contractor. Needs revision, which is that they displayed some evidence of the perspective of a contractor, but probably not adequately. And then sufficient, which is displayed evidence of understanding of the perspective of contractors, including examples of the challenges they might face. And then exemplary, which is displayed evidence of understanding of the perspective of contractors, including examples of challenges they face and alternative approaches that they might consider. So each one of those is incrementally deeper understanding of the particular criteria. So the goal would be for each of our performance tasks up here that would have criteria, we would develop a rubric to ensure that we were, in fact, evaluating properly against the performance tasks and in line with the desired results code. And that's the end of stage 2.